Hiya crafty folks, Amy here with amyswares, and today I'm going to make a pet sympathy card. Now to start, I'm going to show you some of the products that I'm going to be using. I have the I Rough You stencil from A Colorful Life Designs, as well as the fabulous Cloud Edger, which was my first stencil ever that I purchased from A Colorful Life Designs. I have this super sweet Pet Sympathy stamp set and this new to me embossing folder. Now here's a photo of the finished card to show you the direction that we're headed, but really it was just some simple stamping, or sorry, not stamping, stenciling and ink blending and dry embossing, and it pulled this whole design together quite easily. So I'm just going to mask off the dog. I don't want the heart and I don't want the edge of the stencil, but I'm going to basically just stencil the dog first. Now this makes a really good silhouette. If you wanted to do like a shadow, you could do this in a black or a dark gray, and it creates a really cool silhouette. But this is actually a custom sympathy card for my friend Al, so I wanted this to look like her sweet puppy Bartles that passed away recently. So I'm kind of coming in with lighter colors because he was more of a tan, and I'm just adding a little bit of a darker brown just to add a little bit of shadowing on the design. Now what's so great about this stencil is I have this masking piece which will perfectly cover the dog stenciling so that I can ink blend around it without having to worry about that color getting on top of this image. So I'm just using my tape runner here. If you have pixie spray or a temporary adhesive, you can use that to hold it down, whatever you have on hand. Now here you can see I'm using the Cloud Edger to just put a nice little cloud scene on the top of the card, but as you saw in the finished photo, it did kind of get a little bit lost when I started bringing in the rainbow colors, but it's still there. You can see it a little bit more in person, and I wanted to kind of incorporate that little bit of sky onto the top of the design. Now I have some very bright colors from Catherine Pooler. I collect the mini ink pads, and I do want to create a rainbow look. So Al, first of all, loves rainbows, but also kind of playing on the whole rainbow bridge idea of when you lose a beloved furry critter. So I'm just kind of working through the colors of the rainbow, starting with red right behind the dog image, and then kind of moving outward. So like I said, I did end up kind of covering a lot of the Cloud Edger, but it does still show a little bit. So I'm just working back and forth, kind of blending these colors into one another, again using just kind of very bright traditional colors for the Roy G. Biv rainbow layout here. So I have my little blending brushes from Altenew. These allow me to get really kind of bright saturated color. And then finally I'm going to come in with this purple color just to finish the rainbow design. And then the next step, I'm going to be using a new to me Altenew embossing folder. I think it actually is kind of relatively new in the lineup. I got it on a recent haul video, and I'm excited to kind of use it to incorporate some texture into this design. Now I am going to carefully remove this mask and then use my adhesive eraser just to kind of get off that adhesive. Like I said, this was actually a permanent adhesive tape runner that I was using, but if you have one with like little dots, it'll be even easier to remove, or just a temporary adhesive as well, just to kind of hold that down. Now I decided I wanted to make the dog just a little bit darker, so I'm putting the stencil back on, and then I'm going to kind of come in with a little bit of a darker brown just to add a little bit more variation in color, but not much has changed, just giving a little bit more of a pop, I guess, on that. Now I'm going to open up this Wicker Pattern 3D embossing folder. You guys probably know these Altenew 3D embossing folders are my absolute favorite. You could spritz the back of this with water. I'm being a little careful because I don't want any water to touch the water reactive ink on the front, but that is an optional step if you want to really encourage those fibers to take the design. Now here I grabbed a colored pencil. I was just kind of trying to draw in a little bit of extra shading, but it was a little too difficult with the embossing on it, so I decided to skip that step. Now I'm using the same color that I used for the ink blending on the dog, and I'm just doing direct to paper kind of ink swiping on a scrap piece of cardstock, and then adding a little bit of the darker brown as well. So this will perfectly match the dog, but this is what I'm going to use for my sentiment. So I'm just kind of getting the color that I want on this, and then deciding which stamp from this stamp set that I want to use. Now this is from MFT stamps, and I will link it below if it's still available. But this says, I forgot what it said. Anyway, I'll tell you in a moment once I stamp it. But it's just kind of a nice combination of really heartfelt sentiments, which are great for any pet sympathy cards that you need to make. So I'm just going to use the same color. I'm going to actually use the dark brown. You could do a black as well and stamp, but I really wanted it to kind of match, and I wanted it to be a little bit more subtle. And I knew that stamping it a couple times would make it plenty dark enough to be visible. So it says forever would not have been long enough. So I feel like that's so true. When we lose our pets, we only get them for such a short period of time, it feels like, and it never feels long enough. So I'm just going to do a second sentiment on the inside of the card, again using that same brown just so it matches the front. And I did do a little bit of that cloud edger on the inside of the card. So that was a way to kind of continue the design onto the inside of the card, and also to showcase that amazing stencil as well. So I'm just using my Misty Door here. I'm just going to stamp this a couple times. And it just says, with heartfelt sympathy for the loss of your beloved companion. So here I'm just basically going to use my little custom stamp on the back. If I remember, I will link that below, but that was just from a company I recently got that, and it just makes it really easy to stamp my logo on the back of a card. Now this, you can see the square is too big, but this is going to create a nice stitched edge on the sentiment banner, and I did actually just shift it up just to make it the size that I needed so that it wasn't too big. And I'm just going to put this down with some foam tape on the front of the card, so there's no dimension other than just popping up this sentiment strip. Now I do decide to trim this down just a little bit because it was just a touch too thick, and I didn't want to risk it overhanging the little sentiment at all. So I'm just going to trim it down to size, remove the backer, and then place that down on the front of this card. And I did attach that panel directly to a card base, so that's US A2 size 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. Now I have some more A Colorful Life Designs products here. These are the card bling. They're relatively new to the shop this year, but she is adding quite the collection. So if you're into card bling, I definitely recommend these. These are confetti style, so they're like sequins. They're flat, but there's no hole in the center. And there are multiple sizes in each little package. Those packages that you see there are how you get them when you order them from the shop. So it's a nice amount, lasts a really long time. Well, I guess depending on how much you use it and if you use it for shakers. But I have yet to get through a bag, and I use these on pretty much almost every card these days. But I put a smattering of those down, which I felt matched the composition. Just kind of subtle, added a little bit of shine and a little bit of interest, and that's going to finish the card. So thank you so much for spending time with me. I will link everything in the video description box below. If you shop A Colorful Life Designs, be sure to use my coupon AmyFan10, and I will catch you next time. Thanks so much for watching. Bye.